Hi, everyone. You might be wondering why we're not doing this live today. And it takes a lot of work to try to do it live. There's all kinds of stuff that can go wrong. And I've got a lot of recording I need to try to get done over the next couple of days. So I thought I would record this one for you, but I'm not going to edit anything. It's still going to happen as if everything was live. Case in point, I've already got someone sitting on the bag. You all remember Annie. She wanted to go for a little nap on the bag of questions. Little rascal that she is. So we'll let her do that in a second. As we did last time, I'm going to do a question. Then I've got a little something to talk with you about with relation to tomorrow's gospel reading. And then we're going to do another question. Don't forget, send these to me. If you've got prayers, send them to me as well, because it all gets used in our worship. So because I'm running out of questions, I only got 3 or 4 left here. I'm not going to say who asked them, but if you heard your question asked, be excited. So let's see what this first one is going to be. Our first question feels like a long one. Ooh, this is a nice one. This is a really good one, and it's going to tie in very nicely with what I have to talk to you about today. Our first question, why does God stay in heaven and not come down to earth to visit? That's a neat one, isn't it? Is that a neat question, Annie? Do you think Annie's right here in front of the camera? You might see there's the wisp of her whiskers in the camera. Why does God stay in heaven and not come down to earth to visit? That is a really good question. And the thing is, God is always on earth visiting us. God doesn't just stay put in heaven. God is always here visiting us. The challenge that we have is, of course, we don't know what God himself looks like. We see in movies sometimes that God is... Annie likes chasing the paper. God... sometimes you see like the big long white beard down past the belly button and the long white hair and everything like that. And that's how movies try to portray God, because we need a way to be able to see God. We need something that we can wrap our heads around. But we need to remember, most importantly, that we were created in God's image. So we are the physical representation of God here on earth. God came to us in Jesus. So God walked among us in the form of Jesus. And the Holy Spirit, the third part of the Trinity, is always active among us. So to say that God is staying in heaven is saying that God is only in one place, and that's where he's doing everything. But in reality, God is always here among us, always. He's here among us whenever we see good happening in the world, whenever there is sadness in the world, like we've seen over the last couple of weeks. God is here being sad with us. God is here to be sad and to try to offer comfort to us. So God is always here. He's not just staying in heaven. It might seem that way, but it's mostly because we don't see God physically in a way that we would understand God. Like, God doesn't just walk down the road in the form of our dear Thomas here, or Violet, or Camille. God walks the streets through us. Whenever we see something good happening in the world, God is there working through people. You look at all of our essential workers. That's a big word that's been thrown around a lot over the last 2 months. The essential workers. People who are working in grocery stores, in our restaurants, and of course everyone working in the medical field. Our doctors, our nurses, personal care attendants, lab assistants, lab technicians, x-ray technicians, and the list goes on. God is working through all of them as well to help us get through this very, very difficult time. So God is always right here with us. But of course, God lives in the kingdom. As we understand it, as heaven is another word that's used. But in our gospel, see, I told you this would tie in nicely. Our gospel for tomorrow comes. The problem with doing recording as well is sometimes the video just cuts off. So there's going to be a small edit because something happened and I don't know what. But tomorrow's gospel comes from the gospel writer John. And John knew a lot about Jesus and wrote very nicely about it. And it's one of my favorite pieces of the Bible when Jesus says, "Don't let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you?" And it goes on and on. And one of Jesus' friends, I believe it was actually Thomas or Philip, one of the two, said, "We don't know where you're going. How can we know where you're going?" And Jesus says, "Through me. I am the way. No one comes to God except through me. And if you have seen me, you have seen God as well." And a lot of I preach on that one a lot. I've done sermons on that one quite a bit. And because the Bible has been translated in so many different ways, sometimes we hear the word believe in John's gospel as trust or as have faith in me. And that's what Jesus is asking us to do. Not just believe in him, because we can believe anything out there. The word believe is a very, very strong word, but we're very quick to believe a lot of things. I mean, your moms and dads, nans and pops, aunts and uncles, anyone who's on Facebook, we see a lot of stuff shared around. And it's easy to believe what we read. And a lot of it is made up. There's a lot of made up stuff going around. But that's where trusting what we read is more important. Trusting what we know, because trust is far more powerful than our belief. Because to put our full trust in something, we are saying, no matter what, I'm committed. I believe and trust completely in what's happening. And that's really, really powerful. So when Jesus tells us to believe in him, he's asking us to trust. When I was in high school, and of course, where I grew up, high school encompassed grades 7 through 12. Not like here where you have the intermediate, middle school, and high school. My school, I went to 2 different schools from grade kindergarten until I graduated. I was in Army Cadets, and I loved my time in Army Cadets. I was even an officer for the Army Cadets. I was in the military for a couple of years, and I had the uniform and everything. I still have it, I just don't fit into it. But we always played these team building games where we did things to try to make us stronger as a team, as a group. And one of those things, I always remember it, and it was always so scary, is you'd stand on this tall box or a barrel or something very high, and the rest of your team stood on either side. Some of you might know where I'm going with this. Stood on either side, and you stood up back on to your team. So everyone was behind you, much like these guys are to me. And I had to trust that their arms were all outstretched like this, linked, so that when I fell backwards, they would catch me. And we all had to do this to each other. And of course, it was a bit scary because you were standing 3 or 4 feet off of the ground, like quite far off. It wasn't like the coffee table. It was almost like, say, if you were standing on the back of the couch and everyone was behind you. And of course, for me, I was always very tall. So you take 4 feet off the ground plus my 6 feet in the air. My head was going to fall about 10 feet if they let me drop. But no one ever did, because I trusted my friends and my teammates. Jesus is telling us that we need to put more than that level of trust in him. We need to put a lot of trust in him, that everything he's taught us is true. The one thing Jesus asks us to do, he wants us to remember him through the Eucharist and through our good deeds. But the one thing he asked of each and every one of us was to trust him, to have faith in him, that everything that he taught leads us directly to God. And that's something so, so special, to know that Jesus wants us to trust him to that level. It's absolutely amazing. And the thing about trust is it's very easy to lose. But Jesus has never done anything to lead us astray. He's always done stuff to get us to trust him. He did it through his love. He did it through the cross. He does it through the Eucharist. He does it through how we treat one another with gentleness and respect. Every time we see that, we see what Jesus had in store for us. And that is what is so, so special about it all. So we need to remember to trust, not only that Jesus did all of these things, that Jesus taught us right, that Jesus taught us to have full faith and trust that he was going to lead us directly to God. And that's why, to tie into our first question, God is always here. He's always here on earth. He's everywhere. The word that we use for that is a big old word. If I knew a little more about video editing, I know how to put two movies together, but I don't know how to do anything super fancy. The word we use is omniscient. And that means God is always everywhere, always looking out, always hearing what we have to do, and always taking care of us. God doesn't just sit around and look at us and come to us when he feels like it. God is always here, but we need to trust that he is. So I hope that tied in really well to that question. We're going to do one more here now, and then after that, we're going to have a prayer, and I'm going to put this together because I don't know why my camera decided to cut off halfway through a thought. The battery is fully charged, and I didn't tap the remote on my wrist, so I need to find a nice big juicy question because I got 1, 2, 3. I got 3 left in the bag, so I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go with this one. Whew. It's not often that both questions can tie into into what I just said. This works out well. What does heaven look like? What does heaven look like? I can tell you, again, I don't have a great answer for what heaven looks like. I have a cat right here. You can't really see her, but she's waiting for me to throw this again, aren't you? You might be able to hear her just ever so slightly. She's got quite the motor on her, according to Reverend Roy. What heaven looks like, we haven't really been told what exactly it looks like. We haven't been told. Again, we have artwork, and we have different styles of how heaven looks in movies and in TV shows. Sometimes we see it as these very, very light clouds where there's always light shining. Everything looks like it's made out of gold, and everything is just so, so beautiful. There was another TV series that showed heaven like as looking just like Earth, only everything was perfect as it was intended to be, and they called it just because that's how TV people are. They call it the good place. And of course, heaven is not just the good place; it is the best place. It is the perfect place. But what it looks like, again, I'm going to jump back to the gospel because that works out well. Jesus compares the kingdom, heaven, to a house. He compares it to a very, very, very big house. A house that has many different rooms, and each room has been prepared for us. So I personally like to think of heaven as a space that God has prepared for each and every one of us, that is what we have felt is perfect. That helps us with our experience when we are reunited with God, because of course it's scary to think about what that could be. But when we are there, we know that we are taken care of. And however that looks, it's all individual to us. But we are told that it is a special place prepared for us with love and care by God our Father. And it is a place where everything is made perfect, where there's no sickness, where there's no sadness, where our minds can rest. Because of course it's easy now for our brains to just go all over the place and get a little bit crazy and worry about everything. We don't have to do any of that when we are in heaven. Well, for what it looks like, again, jumping back to last week, I don't really have an answer, because no one has told me what it looks like. I've heard stories that people have shared about visions that they have had, and I've heard everything from just a place where they are so happy to a garden where they see all their family and friends and they sit around and they have a wonderful, wonderful picnic of the most delicious foods. I've heard that story, and that one is very, very personal to me. That story came from my grandmother before she went to heaven. That is what she told all of us in the family that she saw, and that she knew everything was going to be okay. But what that is for me, what that is for Victoria or any of our other family members, we don't know yet. What it is for anyone else who's gone on before us, we don't really know. But we have the assurance that it is a special place where everything is new, everything is made perfect, and everyone is at peace. So I really hope that answered the question, and I really hope that it helps some of you in your journey as well, because these are all amazing, amazing questions, and I'm so thankful that you're asking me such tough questions too, because they're so important that we need to know. You know, when I was your age, and I'm speaking specifically to you guys, not mom, dad, nan, pop, aunt, uncle, I'm speaking directly to you guys, I wasn't really allowed to ask these questions in church. I wasn't, but I'm so glad that you are able to ask them, because they help all of us understand our faith a little bit more. And I'm so, so thankful for that. Don't forget to keep sending questions. Send them in, because I'm down to the last couple. I've got enough to get through next week. But after that, I'm going to need more, or I'm going to need to know what other kinds of things you'd like to see me do. Would you like to see me do more little sciencey kind of experiments? Would you like to see the cats? Would you like me to do something out in nature to talk about God's creation? Anything like that, I am open to your suggestions, because this is how Sunday school is for another little while. We're very hopeful that things within the next few weeks are going to start getting back to normal, and we're going to be able to come back to church for worship. But until then, this is what it is. You get my couch. You get to see my cats. Of course, the only one who showed up right now is Annie, because she got to be the center of attention. Yes, she does. She's going to come over here again just to say hi. She has to be the center of attention, even though she doesn't love the attention like this. Isn't that right, Miss Annie? Oh yeah, you're not going to talk now. You're usually yelling at me.
Love from a distance.
Huh?
She likes love from a distance.
She likes love from a distance. But let's see if she doesn't mind being up in my arms as we share in today's prayer. Thank you, God, for teaching us that above all, we need to trust you and have faith in you in all things. Thank you for sending Jesus to teach us that he points us the way to you with love, with gentleness, with respect and compassion. Help us to show that love to everyone so that they can see you active in the world today and always. Amen. Thank you again for being with me today. I'm trying to see if I can turn off my camera from here. I don't know how well that's going to work, But apparently I've got it figured out now. Just didn't want to cooperate with me earlier. So everyone, have a great day. Let me know if you like this kind of style. I'm still wanting to do these. I'd like to do some live stuff again as well. But, you know, we work with what we have to work with. So I hope you have a great day, that you stay safe, that God will continue to bless you. We will see you next time. Take care.